On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, we will cover the JSON class in JavaScript. We will explain the JSON class in JavaScript with practical samples. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. The JSON object mainly has two methods. JSON stringify converts an object into a JSON string, and JSON parse creates an object from a JSON string. JSON is a data exchange format that can express only some JavaScript values. Functions, undefined, symbol, and circular references cannot be directly converted to JSON. First, here is a basic example of converting an object to a JSON string. This code is the most basic example of converting a regular object into a JSON string. JSON stringify returns the string synchronously. By specifying replacer, the second argument of JSON stringify, you can finally control the conversion rules. Here is an example using an array to keep only specific properties. In this example, password is excluded so that safe log output is possible. This is useful when you want to remove sensitive information for security reasons. If you want more flexibility, you can provide a function to process each key and value. Below is an example of keeping a date as an ISO string. In a function type, replacer, the key and value are passed and the returned value is used in the final JSON. This refers to the parent object, so it can also be used for nested conversions. JSON parse converts a JSON string back to an object. Wrap it with try catch so that you can handle invalid JSON. If the string is invalid, an exception will be thrown, so always include exception handling when dealing with external sources. By using the second argument, reviver, of JSON parse, you can perform value restoration. Here is an example of converting a stored string date back to a date object. Reviver is called for each key, and the returned value is used in the final object. Please perform strict date format checking according to your application. To output with indentation for readability, pass a number or string as the third argument to JSON stringify. For JSON intended to be read by people, such as logs or configuration file outputs, it's helpful to specify indentation. However, be aware that this increases the size. JSON stringify throws a type error if there is a circular reference. A common solution is to create a replacer, using a scene set to avoid circular references. By using a weak set, you can detect circular references while avoiding memory leaks. In the case of a circular reference, it returns circular. It is also possible to assign a reference ID instead of circular. If you define a to JSON method on an object, JSON stringify uses its return value. This is useful when you want to embed conversion rules for each type. To JSON allows you to define serialization rules at the object level, making it more localized and intuitive than using replacer. Notable examples that cannot be converted to JSON are undefined functions, symbol, big int, and circular references. Be aware of numeric precision as well, such as large integers and IEEE floating point rounding. When handling big int, convert it to a string or define its representation using a custom replacer or to JSON. JSON parse itself is safe and considered safer than eval, but it is dangerous to trust the parsed object and use it directly for property access or database queries. Always validate and check that the data conforms to the expected schema. For input validation, schema validation, using libraries such as AJV is robust. Frequently serializing and deserializing large objects puts a load on the CPU and memory. If necessary, you can consider sending only the differences, using binary formats, like message pack, or streaming, processing data sequentially. In browser environments, there are cases where you can make use of structured clone for copying or transferable objects in PostMessage. You can also consider the following points. For logs, avoid pretty print and use single-line JSON to reduce size. Objects that are serialized frequently should be made lightweight beforehand, for example by removing unnecessary properties. Use replacer to minimize traversal and exclude unnecessary properties. Finally, here is a sequence showing how to safely convert an object to JSON for sending to a server and restore a date from the received response. In this example, password is excluded before sending, and date is restored by reviver after receiving. In actual operation, you will need to add error handling and timeout processing. Using JSON stringify and JSON parse, you can convert between objects and strings. You can customize the conversion process using replacer and reviver, and if you implement to JSON in a class, you can also control each object individually. Circular references, big int, functions, etc. cannot be handled as is, so you need to process them beforehand. Always validate external input, and make sure sensitive information is not included in logs or communications. If the data size is large, it is efficient to avoid pretty printing, consider differential transmission, or use binary formats. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.